Welcome to the Alchemist and the Oracle. And today we're getting into conversation. We're revisiting our spiritual warrior training, the very first episode on the channel that we ever recorded. We're going to revisit that and see where the conversation takes us. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Alchemist and the Oracle, a space where we engage in spiritualized conversations that deepen understanding, inspire transformation, and hopefully spark meaningful dialogue about life's most profound truths. I am Nicole Love, the Oracle, and I am joined by my co-host, Warrioress Ardeshir RN, also known as the Alchemist.
Grand day, everyone.
With that, my dear Warrioress Ardeshir RN, is there anything, when you watched back that episode, was there anything that kind of stood out to you?
Yeah, it kind of did. I mean, it was kind of probably what probably hadn't been kind of tapped into when I look back at our second training. And I will always, I will probably say a lot. I will talk about awareness because it's truly key. This kind of reminds me of another quote that I didn't just slip my mind now, but so it has to do with the beginning of becoming, and then becoming what you have to actually release to sit in self. And then sitting in self is really, really, really releasing the world and worldly things, not so much not the acquire, because I can't say that because I'm a true Taurus and I do like that. So about the conditions, we speak about that. I'm just going to allow my spirit to speak frankly and openly, so in reference to it. And so, and something that I am soon to publish, and I guess when I look at the timing and everything that went on, and the reason why it hasn't been isn't because it's not viable to be in. And we talk about death, and in this instance, it means truly releasing, or allowing yourself to die off the bits of you that are no longer serving you in the current moment. So, and what we'll be speaking about, I think, to a more depth of that, because I had previously spoke about, the pandemic and things of that nature, and what was discovered and what we discovered, or what I discovered about myself in that moment, which was still a pretty early stage in the renewal of who I was choosing. And we talk about being a kind person. Don't want to use the word nice, and I forgot the acronym that Diva G, Coach G used. Like, nope, don't want that acronym. So what came to me was the part that my soul had spoke, because it knew what was going to be needed of me to do, to stand, and even to be here in this moment. And that means that I had to have more layers and conditionings to release and to die off, literally die off in the spiritual essence of that, which is the energy, the untruth about who I am, but now it's about who I was that I'm not today. And understanding the training, the sitting still, what matters. And I realized that a quote was said to me by one of the pastors I know. Whether he'll ever see this, I don't know. But the thing of it is I had this contemplation about how I pray, or my prayer. And for that, to everybody, I know some people don't get into. I choose to do this on my own. I choose to use the word prayer from my perspective in the quiet time, is that it's not so much that I need to sit as that he said something about you're a walking prayer. And so I had to sit with that. And I'm like, that's right. I have quiet time because I heard people who said they got to have the TV on all the time. They got to have some noise going on in the house. I have no problem with that. And even in my room at the house, that's kind of where we got to this, where I thought I was alone. I'd be up in my room or up in my room now where it's quiet. There's nothing going on. I walk around, there's no TV, there's no music, there's no nothing. And that's solitude time for me, except I have to be careful for what's going on in my brain. So we have to be careful of what we're thinking, what we're saying. And so to continue to understand or even become aware of even your self-talk, you have to, and I have to catch myself. I'm better at it. I don't say the things I say to myself to try to, what's the word I want to say? To try to make me better, because those terms are no longer valid for me to understand or be myself or even look at my appearance and say certain things to myself, around who I am, how I look. No, I don't like scars. But also I said to myself just the other day, that scars have a story. My scars have a true story. Some of those scars are unseen for most of us. So when I look at continuing to release, to honor self, stepping more into your connection with God source, universe, is that I thought, okay, this is going to be easier. Not easier in the way that most people think, but easier because I don't have that energy or negative energy or energy that is based upon what somebody else thinks of me, about what somebody says I have to walk, how I need to be, how I need to walk or approach the world as a woman. And that matters. That matters. When I talked about that we as a woman, and everywhere I go, or something, little something, and I have to be more direct when, or more aware of the certain situations in which we as gender say we're sorry. Or when I say, I'm sorry, and it's not nothing to be sorry. If you bump me, it's like, excuse me, because I don't think you meant to bump me, not unless you really meant to bump me. But just a certain
that might be possible. You out in these streets tempting people.
So
sorry.
It's like, now see, now you want to be funny. You were supposed to interject like that. Sorry for what? Sorry for interjecting at the time that, yeah.
Maybe they want you to give them a reason to be sorry. I don't know. Anyway. So instead of saying sorry, you're saying what's the word you said? Sorry versus
excuse me.
Excuse me. Yeah. Okay. Or pardon me.
Pardon me is another one. But there's things where no one has done nothing, and they saying I'm sorry. Okay, things didn't go that I say I'm, and I didn't have any control of, or just what happened. Say you're a cashier. Okay, let me use that term because I've been one of those. I worked as one of them. So if the machine doesn't do what I'm expecting it to do, it's not me, it's not the machine. So I'm like, oh, sorry, ma'am. I'm like, or sorry for just things that for which I have no control over. I'm like, just hold on. The machine is malfunctioning. I'm going to get somebody, and there's other situations. And most of the time I think I remember certain situations. I had somebody just say, I'm sorry to me, I said, you don't need to be sorry. Don't need to be sorry. It's good, for nothing for which they had any control over. It's just like the sewing machine. If, oh, I'm sorry, and then, but you can correct that, and make it so there's just, the awareness of what you say, how you be, and how you express and honor yourself in the world. And some of these, like I said, it's about, conditioning. And so, oh my goodness, check this out. So a topic came up this weekend, and oh Lord, no, I wanted to be in the mix of it. So I to the side for a minute, and I'm thanking God that there were a few men in the room, right? Because they do need to speak. And so here's an example of an awareness, and I try to really just come from what is fed to me normally and not from my gender-based self. Was about whether, now some men may not want to, they like to be the approachers, but it was, let me see, I can't, but I'm gonna do the question from, which was the essence of this, is whether or not is it okay for a woman to approach a man, I guess, if she's
Okay, so pick back up on where you were talking about women approaching a man, like the question. That's where we got cut off.
Yeah, I wish I could have remembered it exactly, but yeah. So when it comes to that factor, and I was saying that some men have been hesitant to approach some women because of the response of some women, and some of the women I was going to say, well, I get that, but one of them was saying that if a man can't approach me, to speak to me, and I guess you just have to take what's going. My thing of it with the woman is just say you're not interested and go that, and I think it ought to be in there. Now, if God thinks, and I said some guys will say, hey, that's going to be my wife, then you have to go about it a different way to continue to, make that happen, but in a way that is respectful or something to that nature. But she's like, if a dude can't approach her, then he's not her guy. So I said, okay, got you, get that. The other one's like, yes, I will go up and then I said there's another thing about the eye contact. Now some people were just natural innocent flirts. So I have to
Sure. Okay, we'll call it that.
but it was really, really cool and deep. And so because the old adjective that changed. Now, if you are that person, because even in a conversation I had with a long-term family friend who knew me and my sibling when we were way, way, way young, we had that off conversation. And so when you look at being aware and looking at, but everything is just not black and white. There's gray. People don't believe in gray, but gray does exist. And so we were speaking, and the whole idea of that came up with the earring. She's not a woman who would date a guy who would wear earring. But we're talking about older school, we're talking about much older than me. And then there's some men who wouldn't wear it because of the old status. Now I've had conversations with one of the guys who's been in my class, and we go back and have the conversation about the day. But I'm like, yeah, but was that really the naturalness of what it is to be, to how you present yourself as a guy? So a couple of the guys came up and said a few things, which I'm glad, because their voices need to be heard. And so there's some woman said she likes a guy. I think it's how you do it and how you do it. And for everybody is different. And we are in a different time where if a woman's interested in a guy, if not, and thinks, or he might not even have noticed her or anything like that, that conversation came up. And so you look at a dynamic where things are slowly changing. Things are slowly doing off. People are feeling that they can be more of the true essence in which they are which is something you ought to be anyway, who can direct that for you? So for this person, that woman or that man, that might have a man that may not be the type of man that wants to be pro because he feels that he needs to be that one. Understood. Cool. Yeah, that. Or you have women that are more dynamic where if I see something, I'm going to go for it. And why does it have to be gender based? But you have the older school, you have the in between, you have the newer school. And so why should any of it be any damage? You know who you are. So most feminine women, I'll say that, and that's not a hit, would prefer when we're looking at heterosexual relationships, the one that passes I'm more heterosexual. And I'm like, I don't even know why we even have to really even try to determine, identify who we are. But yes, we have heterosexual and we have gay used to be happy, but now it's tied to the LGBT community.
Homo versus hetero. Yeah.
Yeah. Community in honoring the different dynamics in how we come. A lot of it is based upon conditioning.
I think it's all conditioning though.
Yeah.
Because I know so many women who are heterosexual, right? Mm-hmm. That have no problem approaching a man. Like in college, like, I don't know, my mind goes to like, there's so many different thoughts and perspectives around this where I think it all goes back to conditioning.
Yes.
Number one. And then just your level of comfortability in how you just feel in the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is deeply rooted in conditioning on top of that too. So
I don't know, when I look at spiritual warrior, the training, which is just opening up and being raw and just, you know, sharing, like I said, what's in the room. It's even that I've had conversations with the guys and I said, well, you can take it for a compliment. If you, for instance, and I'm speaking about this because there's a time if I hadn't been through this worship where my mouth would still be closed. And so I just put it there. That might not be for everybody. But if your approach, if a heterosexual man is approached by a gay man and that's not your thing, the basic thing is to say no, but that's a compliment. Not every man, like I said, not unless you just not unless you just for the lack of a term bad, we know what a hoe means. So I'm just going to say that. So, and maybe I don't want to say, but anyway, for whatever, I was going to say this, is that if you have every man has a particular woman that they want, not unless they just don't care. Okay, that's out there. So, I'll put it that way so you can retract the other thing that I said. So the fact of it is that if it doesn't matter if you care, so you're not typically one out there. If you're really overly sexually, then so be it, right? So, and not every woman, a woman has a particular type of man that she likes, and vice versa. And so it doesn't mean that if you're approached and that person's not for you, that is that we're in a culture that's dying off from certain ways of being or not feeling comfortable in your own skin in many aspects. So the awareness is that certain things are dying off. And so for me to sit here and just honor who I am, not categorized of anything other than human as a human being. Because as I said, the skin that I'm in, the skin that I look, I have a lot to do with that. I just have to honor it, And even I was downloading from a program and where a video was being done, basketball player, where they're about to do a video and the person who was in control of it is a darker skinned woman. So you just have this awareness, and that because of how she was treated in her skin, she wanted this actor to be more of her complexion for this when it comes to Black men and women, and like women versus my skin tone. And so there has been like either trauma or some type of hurt or some type of have based upon, that. So it was just very interesting that this particular topic came up in a room of women for which women were present. And when I look at that is an open awareness that we're able to speak and to honor and to shed some of the things, like you said, the conditioning, and to be open to speak about certain things that used to be taboo that need not be taboo in the world. And for me, and looking at the growth and to honor, because we need to honor each other in the world. And something about oneness came up yesterday. And we are one, different, in our beings, different in our thoughts, but to understand and respect and honor, one another in that, which means certain things are dying off. People are able to be more interactive with one another, in which we should, and to continue to have more conversations and having it mixed in and having the gender based, especially males, really, because there's some men that are quiet, but they really need to be heard. And even in our warriorship, some of our orgies and things of that nature came together because
I think you need to explain what that is, because if you're not in the program, you'd be like, what is that?
A male warrior.
Okay.
Identified more so as, yeah, I would get to that. Thank you for that. A male warrior, and how their play in the world, and how they ended up having things just for men, and they need more of that. Women, we have a lot of different groups. Some I'm not aware of. I'm finding out about more of them, and I'm hoping to be that young elder speaker within that. But especially as a spiritual alchemist, that focuses, on the ego, and looking at that in the transition awareness that we have to have around it. And so in our second training, it came about releasing, dying, and allowing yourself to be more, and allow whatever your higher power to step in and do that. Is like in not being in control of. And so I understand that my life and the things that are just transitioning and being a part of that, this weekend was, of a few days ago, was just that. So awareness is key, openness is honoring, releasing is that, in allowing yourself to be fully and rawly who you are in the world, and have those conversations to continue to, I'll use the word warrior up, and releasing, what you think and how you think you ought to be in the world, and honor your natural nature and whatever that is. Because I'm in a process, or I guess for a while, 1, 2, 3, 4, of parenting, reparenting myself in a way that honors my highest and greatest good. So when I say that I'm in joy, or I am gay, I am happy with every aspect of who I am, the warrior I am, the woman I am, the human being that I am. And honoring the road, and allowing this second saga and journey of my life to unfold in a way that never had before, in such a way that I honor the dreams, the visions, letting go of the illusions that are untrue about me in this world. So I pass it on to you, and you're taking reference to how I think I've just evolved, and I'm happy about it. I'm stoked about it.
So would you say
to be
that
on this platform is something?
Would you say that by you going through spiritual warrior training, that was what allowed you to really evolve, come more comfortably? to see the power of evolution.
Oh God, yes. I mean, when I look at the losses that happened prior, and then what I've honored and held space from then has been awe inspiring. I mean, I'm so thankful. Like I said, I had got a rejection letter and an acceptance letter, and hesitated, and it was called upon me by my mom and everybody else that this is what I was to do and to go through, and it wasn't easy because
No. Mm-mm.
girl, I was resistant to some of it, not in a bad way, but because of the mind, because I've been, and because of yeah, yeah, just things.
I think we all have been like, I think everyone that showed up to spiritual warrior training 1 and 2, it was also, we kind of showed up like bracing for impact too, because I've been kind of exploring this realization of how we brace for impact just out of a safety mechanism.
Yes.
So that can kind of be like pushback because you're bracing for impact. So when you are starting to like go through, like just going through the training and what have you, there's this innate resistance because you're kind of bracing for impact. So it can be innately challenging, but I think it's also part of the process. Because you were talking about before we started recording about, or maybe it was during the recording, I can't recall, about the transition from a caterpillar to a butterfly.
It was before, yeah.
Okay. And so if anyone knows about it, like when they come out of the chrysalis, they have to fight their way out of it, because through that it dries out their wings so they're able to fly. And that's why they say if you see a butterfly that's like kind of partially out of like that chrysalis from transitioning from a caterpillar into a butterfly, to don't touch them because they will die. Is you have to go through that pushing back of bracing, that, like defaulting of constantly bracing for impact versus allowing for the exploration to experience something different. Because if you want a different experience, you have to do things differently. That's the only way that it happens. And spiritual warrior training, it takes you to those spaces of kind of looking at let's call them gremlins and things like that. That kind of,
that's a fact.
You put up on the shelf, or you're like, oh, I forgot about the gremlin in the box there. Hey, how you doing? Yeah. Right? It's like going through spiritual warrior training. The requirement is, okay, you need to bring all your gremlins with you. Mm-hmm. And also kind of brace for impact. Guess what? There's going to be some that pop out that you didn't even know are like back there too. So, but it was a container that provided the safety in unpacking all of that. Because, Iyanla Vanzant, she has gone through this herself, and she created this program through her own experience, and just knowing that part of the evolution requires an honest, vulnerable exploration through self-awareness and self-discovery. Yes. And that can be
those are key.
Painful, as you say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One thing because I wrote some notes down here that you said, I'm trying to find it on the page. You were talking about you have to change your play. This is like what I wrote down. You said you have to change your playground to become the person you have told or held you need to be. Told you need to be. You have told you need to be. So let me reach. Okay. You have to change your playground to become the person you need to be. And kind of what you've been talking about is that like you realize I need to change the playground, but also you might have had some fun at the playground too along the way, but you realize can't play like that over in this playground.
That's for sure. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's the truth.
Yeah.
And depending on the desire and the vision that I've had or the dreams, because I said don't stop dreaming, but I just said to myself, even before we began recording, I'm like, I have to believe without a mustard seed of a doubt in order to achieve.
Yeah, the faith of a mustard seed. And it's so tiny. It's true.
That's what I find.
It's true. So one thing that kind of came forward heavy when I kind of revisited the spiritual warrior training was this. It was an interesting conversation too. And also it's so synchronistic that you were talking about a conversation that you were having about like asking women, like, would you approach a man? Because in the previous episode, we were talking about, like, I was talking about, like, I'm just gonna say his name, Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey has this philosophy, even like a teaching point that men cannot have relationships with women. And I always would hear that. And from my standpoint, I was like, that says a lot about you, Steve Harvey. And now that I've started to see his history, I'm like, oh, okay. It makes more sense. I feel like I don't think that that's true. I don't think that it's not that men can't have relationships with women. I think the bigger question becomes like, what type of relationship are you talking about?
Okay, let's clarify that a little bit. Let's clarify a little bit. So we were talking about that men and women could be friends without getting to be. Now, I look at intimacy as different because I look at even intimacy, energetic connections as a warrior. So without having sex, let's just get out there.
Right. That's literally what. So he says that men cannot have cannot be in. Men only want to have sex with women, so therefore they cannot have a relationship with women
or friendship,
because their only reason they're in relationship, quote unquote, with them is because they want to have sex with them, and so they're incapable of separating the two. That's his thought. Like he teaches that a lot. Like he has said that a lot. I heard that a lot, and I heard people kind of like parroting it, and I'm like, I don't think that that's a true full statement. I think that says a lot about him and maybe his perspective on things. And I think that some men put themselves in proximity with women in kind of posing of like, oh, we're friends. Like, listen, I 100% know that there's some men that, and I wouldn't even say like we have a relationship, right? We're cool, surface level cool. But if I was to be like, hey, come over, let's have sex, they'd be like at my door in like 5 minutes or so. They'd be like, oh, bet what you need me to bring. But I also know the relationships that are not surface level, they would never, they'd be like, what's wrong with you? Like, you good? Like, what you talking about? Because that ain't happening here. They would have a deeper conversation of like, what's going on with you? Like what's happening? So I think it says a lot about your awareness, your capacity to connect. Why are you sexualizing women? Like your capacity to only look at women sexually
Mm-hmm.
is part
Mm-hmm.
of the problem. And it goes back to what you were talking
Agreed.
about, where a lot of women don't feel comfortable approaching men because of that. A lot of women go
Mm-hmm.
into spaces very guarded. And some men, and like, hey, I'm in Atlanta and I get hit on by women too, because we just have a very heavy gay community and I have friends
Yeah.
that are in the community. So I'm at these spaces. And the level of aggressiveness, I'm like, why is this like a thing? How, like, is that really effective? I'm always like, now I ask, like, is this approach effective? Like, what's your odds here? Like, tell me what your odds of success here.
Wow. Well, oh God, in the spiritual nature and essence of the awareness that going through that brings, and looking at it, and this is a conversation. I guess I'm gonna put it out there or hit his name up because I brought it up um at the event I was at, just whispering to the sister that was next to me. And I'm like, there is a difference. And I've had this conversation about something I shared with you about the difference and it's the same for a woman, the difference of what it is between being a male and a man, also versus what it is to be a female and a woman. There's a difference. And I'm gonna holler out Dante Whitfield's book. Or is it Dandre? Sorry, baby. So
The DeAndre or Dante?
I think I'm looking at it, looks like it's DeAndre. I think that's called Deontay. No, no, no.
Or
Yeah,
is it Deontay?
it's Dondre. He's got a
Don,
hyphen. So he's
what's
an
his
actor. I
name?
know him.
What's the name of the book?
It's called, and I actually have, and I was going through it, and when I was reading what he said, I could even
What's the
feel
name
it
of the
because I
book?
am
You,
woman,
you never
man
said.
versus male versus man.
Oh, I know.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen the book. I haven't read it.
And then I was listening to him, and then of course some of the guys getting to hear, and he's talking about servanthood, this and that, because there's certain thing that a man would not do. And you know, one thing that I have shared with you would not do that a male would, but you're still haven't fully transformed into that, especially when it comes to women, and that respectfulness,
Mm.
and we'll go with touch or this and that without permission, or something to that nature, and understanding certain things. So yes, you know, and then you have to look at how some men have been raised by women. Some have definitely respected, won't do this, or won't approach in such a way. And sometimes, depending on the woman or what type of man you want, we all want different. Some want the masculine macho, some want the, laid back, mellow kind of, you know, you know, it just depends.
Right.
And so
Right. Right.
the growth from our experience and continuing to do the work continue to set into the naturalness of who you are based upon that. And I've been around in my entire life, um and even getting to understand that sport isn't defined by my gender. Okay. It's been something that there's been really, really humbly good at. So and then it takes practice amongst anything else. And when I look at having old things die off, like you're talking, like I was saying, and then tapping into what you're saying, it makes sense. But you have to take the time to get the aha moments, the food for thoughts, and that nature to shift. Because that song, I'm definitely about it. I honor that I'm about shifting the atmosphere, also about going to that space that no, I can't go back. There's no way. I almost went back to, and it was uncomfortable, and stuff happened 3 years ago. So I mean, you got to understand, and so I have to honor the shift.
Right. Yeah, I think you have to meet yourself wherever you are at every single moment of now is kind of how I my philosophy and take, and how just the years of working on the reparenting of myself, and then like also sitting in like some interesting spaces with, whether it was in the boardroom or whether it was like in the spa room or like in a Zoom room, like I realize that that is important, that level of self-awareness. I also mentioned in that episode a quote that I say every single time. And someone was asking me, like, can I read it from the book? So the book that I'm talking about,
what's the quote, baby?
is, well, I'm gonna tell them the book first. So the book that I'm reading the quote out of is The Way of Mastery, and it is by the Shanti Crystal Foundation. That's where you get the book from. Make sure it's the Shanti Crystal Foundation. Buy it from them, okay?
Right.
So I'm going to read the passage here. If I get to the right page. So this quote comes from lesson 1, part 1. And so part 1 is the way of the heart. And then the first lesson is the way that calls you home. So this is a book that was part of our spiritual warrior training. And was it our training or was it spiritual study sanctuary? I'm so confused at this point.
No,
it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. It's a really and powerful book that can help support you if you are on the spiritual journey. It doesn't, like, the semantics of it doesn't matter.
Because of the evergreen, it was.
I'm reading from page 8 if you want to like figure out where it is in the book, for those that like want to find it in this specific book. So it starts by saying, be you therefore a wise gardener, cultivate a deep love and respect for yourself, for you are not here to fix the world. You are not here to fix your brother or sister. It is only love that heals. And until you have loved yourself wholly by having purified the mind of every erroneous thought you have ever held, until you have loved yourself, you do not, in truth, love anyone or anything. Save in those brief moments when you let your guard down and the love of God shines forth through you so quickly, you do not even know what happened. The wise gardener cultivates a state of consciousness in which the love of God is unimpeded. Beloved friends, those of you who have elected to answer a call to participate in this pathway with this family, if you would make your commitment to trusting your Creator for having set before you a pathway that can lead you home, you will indeed arrive at home. But commitment means that you do not get to leave the room when the shouting begins. The shouting we are speaking of is the shouting within your own mind, within your own body, within your own emotions. It means that you will stay with these things by being honest about them and loving yourself forever, having the power to even create such insane perceptions of yourself and the world around you. And the way of the heart is the final pathway that any soul can enter, and that there are many stages of awakening. There are many pathways that can be followed, but ultimately all roads lead to Rome, as they say. And eventually each soul must find its way into the way of the heart. Each soul must come back to the truth that it's time to take responsibility, to learn to cultivate the ability to look upon the deep and vicious blackness of what I have called, quote unquote, ego, which is nothing more than the cesspool of denial. It is that which lacks light. So it's a really good passage. But the reason why this is the thing that stood out to me is I've been in the room so much with other people. And a lot of times I'm in rooms and spaces where I'm like, why do they not hear the shouting? And part of the way of mastery, part of like spiritual warrior training, part of spiritually awakening, right? Because I think everyone goes through their own journey in whatever way, is that it requires a level of self-awareness. And one thing that I remember from spiritual warrior training is that the point of spirituality is self-awareness towards self-acceptance. And that's why I say that quote a lot about, like, you don't get to leave the room when the shouting starts. I say screaming, although the book says shouting, is because the room is your life. You're responsible for taking care of yourself. No one's coming to save you because you don't need to be saved. It's just this need to be reminded of who you have always been, as she says, before the world told you who to be.
Yes.
That's what we're all really kind of craving. And the work is the work for you, because even the book kind of alluded to it. Your journey is your journey. Your pathway is your pathway. And there's different ways of doing it. So find your way, figure out what training you need to get to that level of awareness. And the last thing that I'll say here that I wrote down from watching that previous video that I know for sure is that when the student is ready, the teacher will show up. So if you are listening to this and you're like, okay, I'm ready, explore what that looks like for you. It's your responsibility. You're not broken beyond repair. I think there may be some bruises and things of that nature, but again, you have to tend to your wounds. It's your responsibility. You have to reparent yourself now that you are the adult that is responsible for the child that came into this world. And I will leave it there. I have lost all sense of time because I thought I had hit the button.
We good.
Check the time. I don't know where we are on time.
My button just went. Yeah, we good.
Okay, good. So, you have anything you want to say? I guess it's time to close out here from this episode, revisiting spiritual warrior training and the evolution of us being in training that really brought us here to show up, record that first video, and 2 years later, like, I just look at the evolution of how far we've come just in how we are in conversation and what we're in conversation about.
I couldn't agree. It's been an honor. Thank you for definitely being present here and just the bouncing off and getting to know and sit with yourself, and even dealing with the shadow aspects of self, as you were mentioning. You don't get in the room, and sometimes I do kind of walk out the room. I mean, I do, and then I have to come back. I have to come back and address the thing that doesn't serve me anymore, and to be okay with it, and changing the playground in the rooms in which that no heat, no judgment, but it's about honoring myself and serving myself and living in the essence of what joy truly is. It doesn't mean I'm not going to go through something, which I had to understand that part, because the ego will be like, oh, everything's kosher. I'm like, no, not really. No, it's not. So, and to shift the dynamic. And then when something goes or off or is off, or you see yourself maybe reverting, you can catch it like, oh, no, that don't feel good. No, 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 no. And once it's there, it allows you the presence to understand that that's no longer your world anymore. It's is to desire. So people say, always have this thing is like, looking at stepping into the next saga or having the home you always wanted to own. No matter how old or how whatever, that is possible if you believe. So I said to start living your life and stop letting life live you, is to honor yourself, is to grow forward and find out who that is beyond what the world said. beyond the conditioning, beyond the illusions of the ego, and that wants to keep you safe. And in safety, no one grows. Being safe behind the wheel is a different story. Walking across the street, being careful. But I have to understand and say there's one key. That is an awareness that's just telling me to say it, which is true. We're all responsible. So when you're behind the wheel of the car, you're responsible, but also the person walking across the street is responsible. Because just freaking yesterday, somebody was in the street, middle of the street, wasn't sure what was going on. And unfortunately, I got an overview of them. And so I stopped. I had to go. I was like, okay, baby, which way you going? How you dress? Are you in your conscious mind? And they weren't. And eventually I go by and they cross and they didn't get hit. So we all need to be aware that, of the next person, the next stage of this, that, and the other, wherever you are in the world, whether it be walking, whether it be driving, whether it be shopping, doesn't matter. We all share this one space, and to do that and to honor, what's in the chair, what's in your chair, and whether you like what's sitting in it.
Gotta open your little gremlin boxes up, people.
Yeah.
Pretending that they're not there. They're holding space. And I think it's like you said, it's about being aware of what's there and doing something about it.
Yeah.
That was the whole point of spiritual warrior training. Is like, okay, you showed up. This is the new playground. Now go play and learn from falling down off of this, or like learning how to like navigate this new playground.
And be able to get up. You can fall down, but you got to be able to get up. You got to be able to get up anew.
Or just getting up, even if you are still beat down and still have the same attachments. Getting up is half the battle. I always remember my grandmother saying that. Getting up is half the battle.
Half the battle, yeah. But being aware of it helps too, so.
Well, it's always about awareness.
You know it.
As you said earlier. Well, thank you, my dear Warrioress Ardeshir. Thank you for being in conversation with me today. And thank you for those who have made it to this part of the episode where we say goodbye. Thank you. And we hope to see you, or you can hear us, or you're listening to us in the next episode. So until then.
Much love, y'all, and peace. Deep bow, warrior.
Deep bow. And we're out. We out with here.